Marvel's Phoenix Man, The Ultimate Power Rises. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 1. Leong is 18 years old this year, 1 meter 76 tall, looks a little thin, but if you take off your clothes, you will find that he has steel-like muscle edges and corners, and every place is full of power. He has gray-white hair, which is commonly known as grandma gray, and also has angular features, deep eyes, and black eyes, but there is a trace of Caucasian characteristics between the eyebrows. He was a mixed-race man, his father was Chinese, his mother was white, and the average mixed-race child was extreme, either a big ugly man or an extremely handsome and beautiful man, and he was obviously the latter. At the age of 18, he holds 8 doctorates from New York University, including a doctorate in engineering, a doctorate in medicine, a doctorate in law, a doctorate in finance, and even a doctorate in archaeology. In addition, he is also the main force of the school track and field team, and the only person in the school table tennis club to achieve 3 years without a defeat. In addition, as early as the sophomore year, he has already taken all the required courses on his own, and even the credits have already reached the graduation standard, becoming a legend among the student group. He is a well-deserved figure at New York University, not only because of his handsome appearance, but also because of his extremely rich fortune, 7 large physics laboratories, a public company, and 2 technology companies that never disclose their performance to the outside world. He is also the 3rd largest shareholder of Osborne Industries, the 4th largest shareholder of Stark Industries, and secretly controls more than a dozen large and small businesses and private companies, including pharmaceuticals, journalism, television, automotive, IT and finance. The wealth he showed before him alone has exceeded $30 billion, and he is the 5th Diamond King of the whole New York University, and even New York and even the whole United States. Leon is a winner in life, the speed of changing girlfriends and Tony have a fight. He is also a prodigal son in the love field, but he is different from Stark in that every girlfriend who breaks up with him will be compensated accordingly, whether it is money or material, so he is far more popular among women than Stark. And his disagreement with Stark was known to the whole of America, for he had fought with Stark for a seductive little reporter, after which Stark was hospitalized for 3 days and vowed not to have anything to do with him, and that Stark would never show up at every board of directors as long as Leon was present. "Sir, Tony is scolding you on the news again. Do you need me to broadcast the news?" A slightly mechanical voice sounded in the laboratory. Leong, who was wearing a white coat, did not stop the movement of his hands, and heard the words, "Play it." When the words fell, a 3-dimensional screen appeared in front of him, and on the screen was Tony Stark's underwhelmed face. He was at a cocktail party, with a seductive girl in both hands, and he was very natural in front of the camera. "What? You ask me about my relationship with Leon? Please, I don't know him, he's just an asshole who knows how to play with young girls. He doesn't know the richness of mature women. If you don't believe me, you ask these 2 ladies around me. They are much more delicious than young girls." Tony Stark is very poisonous, satirizing Leon's aesthetic and taste. Most of his girlfriends are relatively young. That's because Leon before he was underage, no woman dared to seduce a juvenile rich man, which is one of his shortcomings. Fortunately now he is an adult. This guy is still as annoying as ever. Leong was not affected by the other party's words, but he still stopped the movement of his hand. He was in a huge white room with many sophisticated instruments in motion, and in front of him was an operating table, on which lay a man, a somewhat eccentric man with human limbs, but a very deformed head, which was obviously a mutant. "Svija, record the data of this experiment. The X gene on the experimenter has been suppressed. For the deformed part of his head, you are left to repair him. Let the dark part transfer him to the ordinary ward. Right, don't forget to erase his memory of this time." Leong took off the rubber gloves on his hands. "Okay sir, and I think you need to fight back against Tony's insults to you. This is the 3rd time he has spoken ill of you on the news this month, and if he does not respond, it will have an impact on the company's stock price," Viskar suggested. As he spoke, he saw several robotic arms hanging above the operating table, and various tools on the robotic arms began to move on the mutant's head. "I know, I will have a chance." Svija is an intelligence system developed by Leon when he was 13 years old, and as for why the name Svija is called, it is obviously with a bad taste. As for why there is such a bad taste, it is because Leon is a crosser, who has not watched Marvel movies in his past life, and originally liked the role of Tony Stark, but when he crossed over and really contacted this person, he found that this product was really annoying. Arrogant, reckless, selfish, this is the true portrayal of Tony Stark. When Leon was 6 years old, his parents had a plane crash and became an orphan, staying at his aunt's house, and after going to high school, he ran out alone. That is, when he was 13 years old, he began his own entrepreneurial journey. The reason why the growth trajectory of this road to the present is like opening and hanging, the reason is also very simple. He really has a plug-in, but this plug-in is not a system or something, but when his soul passes through the world wall film, it is fused into the soul by a mysterious force. At first, he didn't know what this energy was, but in the following time, he gradually figured out that the energy in his soul was one of the most powerful divine forces in the entire Marvel world, the power of the Phoenix. In general, people who have the power of the Phoenix, if they cannot control themselves, will be corrupted by the power contained in the power of the Phoenix, making people full of desire, violence, and anger. But the strange thing is that Liang did not show any inappropriateness, but instead stimulated a strong desire for knowledge, allowing him to have a perverted level of learning ability and mastery ability. Episode 2. The so-called Phoenix Force is one of the most intimidating beings in the creation of the Marvel Multiverse, which can cut or regenerate any part of the universe, or even completely destroy it, burning those things that should be eliminated. Phoenixes can manipulate all the energies of the multiverse and use the power reserved for life in future generations, thereby denying their existence. It can use this ability to produce great destructive power. By folding the energy of space-time, it creates a black hole-like doorway that can travel through space or time at will. It can easily destroy the spatial dimension, from one to the infinite dimension. It can directly absorb free energy, even swallow the entire sun, and can easily destroy a planet to convert it into energy absorption. It can also absorb energy and life energy from enemies. As a link point for all spiritual energies, it possesses psychic abilities throughout the multiverse, including telepathy and teleportation. Of course, these were the manifestations of the late stage of the Phoenix Force, and so far, he had only mastered the powerful telepathy and telepathy transmission ability, and even the ability to absorb free energy, as well as extremely powerful mind control. Now, even if he does not eat, he will not starve to death, but the life expectancy has become a shortcoming he is worried about. His current ability to use is very skilled, but compared to the development and application of the Phoenix Force, his body is his primary goal to grow next, and it is precisely because of this idea that he has been committed to the study of the X gene since the beginning of these years. In the past 2 or 3 years, he has successfully stripped more than 30 mutant abilities from some mutants by scientific means, such as what kind of discharge, flight, water habitat, hypnosis, and deformation, and he has obtained a lot. Not only stripping, even fusion he is also studying, but compared to the unity of stripping ability, because each variant gene is different, it is very difficult to fuse, an ability requires a fusion method. So far, he has only fused the ability to deform and danger perception. As for the other abilities, to be honest, there is the power of the Phoenix, and he really can't see other abilities. If he waits for the control of the power of the Phoenix to go up to the next level, he can directly grasp the subatomic level of the material arrangement, and then he will be the one who stands at the peak of all the Omega-level mutants. Yes, at his current level, he was already a well-deserved Omega-level mutant, but he knew that he was not the most powerful of them now. At best, he was on a par with Magneto. His mastery of the Phoenix Force needed to be improved once, and the key to this ascension was that the flesh became stronger in order to become more flesh and Phoenix power. Liang knew very well that as long as his physical level increased even a little, he could open up a chain reaction and develop more methods for applying the power of the Phoenix. And this opportunity, he has already found. Svija, how was the last plan implemented? Liang took off his white coat and changed into casual clothes and asked. Already implemented, sir. The target person has already made the move, and it is expected that there will be contact with you within 24 hours. Leon's ear was hidden in an extremely tiny headset, and Svija's voice came from it, and he nodded, packed up and walked out of the laboratory. Remember to let the people in the dark watch carefully, and notify me of any movement at any time. Okay, sir. What's my itinerary for today? He asked again. In the morning, Ms. Adeline asked you to meet in the evening, and she said she was going to introduce her new boyfriend to you, and you were doing an experiment, so I told her that I would tell you about it. At another 7 o'clock, you have a charity party to be present, and at 11 o'clock in the evening, you have an appointment with your 432nd sweetheart to meet at the Midnight Howling Bar. Svija reported meticulously. I pushed the appointment with Aunt Adeline, said I really didn't have time lately, and when I had time I would go to see her, and then contact sweetheart number 432 and tell her that the date was early, let her dress up, I would pick her up in a moment, and she would be my female companion for the dinner party in the evening. Leon rode. He had already come to the garage at this time, and the limited edition ultra-luxurious sports car engine started, but he scratched his head helplessly and said to himself, Aunt Adeline, this is the first boyfriend to change, the 6th gentleman. Svija's voice sounded from the car stereo. Well, it's a real headache. I hope this guy didn't approach her because of the money, Svija, to investigate the other person and send me the information. I will, sir. Leon started the car, the engine roared, like a beast waking up from a deep sleep, the entire underground garage echoed with a mechanical roar, and then the high-tech sports car sped out in this roar. Adeline was the aunt he had boarded before, and she was not a pro-aunt, and she had no blood relationship with him, but her mother was just a good girlfriend from childhood, unmarried, or a hot creature in her 30s, and her relationship with Liang was very good, and the relationship between the two was also very good. But now he had some headaches to see his aunt, because although the power of the phoenix did not amplify his negative emotions, it also seemed to have some influence on him, making him have a lot of interest in the beautiful opposite sex, although it was not called humanoid self-propelled reproductive chi, but a hot and special level guardian. After spending a long time together, he was also very uncomfortable, so he was independent early. Episode 3, Broadway Avenue, Wall Street, Times Square, United Nations Headquarters Building, Empire State Building. This is the Manhattan District. The whole of New York and even the cultural and economic center of the United States is the place where countless people are haunted. Here is the gathering place of high society. Celebrities and luxury linger here. All kinds of high-standard parties are almost every day. And today is no exception. Many luxury cars on the street, parked outside the Empire State Building, countless flashes of lights. I don't know how many remember to crouch outside here. The crowd is crowded and people are screaming. In the space left in the middle of the road, there are celebrities who come down from luxury cars, men's suits and shoes, a picture of the style of successful people, while women are all flowers and branches, dressed up gorgeously, and some of the clothes on their bodies are only able to cover the key parts, showing their charm, and they are eager not to wear clothes. This is a woman's arena, a man's hunting field. Everyone comes here for their own purpose. Of course, this is absolutely not including Leon. He came here purely because he was bored. At this moment, a bright red sports car entered the scene, and instead of the roar of the engine, it stopped silently at the door, and then the scissors door opened, and a man with short maroon hair got out of the car, and then came to the passenger seat to pick up a good-looking woman. "Hey, Mr. Stark, look over here, your look is really great today." One reporter couldn't help shouting. Tony Stark looked at it with a smile on his face, and he put his arm around his female companion and posed at the same time. "Dude, take a good picture of me." Of course. For a while, the flash was everywhere, and Tony Stark was enjoying the moment with his female companion in his arms. He was a person who loved to be present, and he naturally liked to do this kind of thing that was out of the limelight. At this moment, a strong sound wave struck, which was the unique roar of sports cars, and the shocked people's hearts trembled, and then they heard a sharp brake sound, and a bright black and blue sports car was parked behind Tony Stark's sports car. Everyone's attention was drawn to the past. Even Tony Stark and the female companion next to him also looked back, and saw a handsome young man, dressed in a casual suit, coming from the car, also went around to the side door to take down the female companion. His female companion was very young, looked like 17 or 18 years old, dressed very sexy and gorgeous, and the front and back of the upturned was definitely a special thing. "Wow. See who this is? Mr. Stark, how long are you going to pose? Don't you know that there are still guests coming in the back?" The person who came was naturally Leon and his 432nd sweetheart, and when he saw Tony Stark, he couldn't help but be the soul of the spit, not only because of the reason why he had a fight last time, but also because he really couldn't get used to this cargo, and the two seemed to be hit by each other. "Man, this is a party for adults, not a playground for kids, and there's only alcohol in it, so if you want to drink milk or go home." When it comes to satirizing others, Tony Stark believes that he is not inferior to others. "Mr. Stark, you may not know that I am an adult, and I have come here to experience the nightlife of adults. Is it now also a recreation room for the elderly? Why are people like you here?" Leon pulled his female companion over, without showing weakness in his mouth. The disagreement between the two was not news for a long time, but when the reporter on the side saw this scene, he still couldn't help but press the shutter of the camera in his hand, and suddenly the four people in the field flashed white. "Damn, why didn't anyone tell me you bastard would be here?" Tonight was definitely not a wonderful night. As he got closer, Tony lowered his voice and said something hateful to Leon. "Me too, a little bit. I should have opened my personal assistant. At least the guy didn't figure out one thing. There's absolutely nothing good about having you somewhere." Leon also replied. Then the two smiled at the same time, but not because of each other, but at each other's female companions. "Ha, dear Miss Potts, it's a pleasure to see you here." Leon smiled and said hello, saying that he was going to hug Pepper Potts with his open hand, but before he could take a step, he was stopped by Tony Stark, and he heard him say in a low voice, "Hell guy, let me stay away from the little Pepper." Leon raised an eyebrow and smiled at him without opening his mouth, while Pepper Potts gave Tony a blank look, and generously hugged Leon. "I also want to say the same thing, I am happy to see you." "Haha, doesn't Miss Potts really think about being my personal assistant?" Leon smiled. "No, thank you Mr. Leon, I'm having a great time doing it at Stark Industries." Pepper Potts smiled and refused. Leon glanced at Tony Stark and whispered, "Luck guy, it's a waste to put such a good woman next to you. Bastard, do you want another fight?" Tony was naturally angry. "Hey, gentlemen, can we go in?" Pepperport laughed. "Of course, two ladies." Leon said and smiled at Leon, and pulled his female companion inside. Tony Stark was obviously a little unhappy with Leon's attitude, but was pulled by Pepper Potts, and at this time he also endured no seizure. Watching the lively reporters see that the two are not getting bigger, they can't help but sigh. They almost think that the two are going to fight again. That way, there will be big news tomorrow. Episode 5. One of Leon's hotels is a 5-star hotel in the Broadway neighborhood, with a total of 37 floors. The lower floor is a gathering area for high-end restaurants and entertainment facilities, and the upper floor is a guest room. Only the 37th floor is not open to the public. This floor is a private space exclusive to Leon, and he does not know how many young girls he has brought here. At this time, in the underground garage, a tall figure was sneaking around, and the whole person melted into the shadow of the garage, and could only see the silhouette of the tall and strong body, and a long dark trench coat. This figure approached the flash door, which was an emergency passageway, and when it was preparing to open the door, his hand was slightly shaken. The air, it seems, has frozen at this moment. The next moment, the black shadow suddenly turned around, half of his face exposed to the light, a beard full of chins, a pair of thick sword eyebrows, and a pair of eyes like a beast. The corners of the man's mouth were high up, revealing a bloodthirsty smile. Was it discovered? The man whispered, his voice low and thick, like a tiger's roar. Click, click, click. In the dim underground garage, rhythmic footsteps sounded, and then 5 figures were seen emerging from the shadows around them, all 5 of them wearing dark suits and masks on their faces, some with different masks, some clowns, some peeking opera faces, and some cartoon images. This kind of dress is already a little unspeakably weird. Are you waiting for me here? A long time ago, I always had a feeling of being followed. I think it should be you, right? The man's voice grew deeper and lower, but his eyes became extraordinarily bright, and he opened his hands, 5 fingers wide open, and 10 nails had somehow turned into claws. Roar. The next moment, the man exploded with a terrifying speed, like a remnant, directly towards one of the 5 people, like a fierce tiger that flew away, with the momentum of choosing someone to devour. His target was a man in the clown mask, and the man was motionless in his momentum, as if he were frightened. The distance between the two was pulled very close in an instant, and almost instantaneously, the man had reached half a meter in front of the clown mask, his hands were raised high, and he stabbed at the clown mask fiercely. Phew! The sharp cracking sound brought a strong air current, and the man's hands effortlessly pierced into the chest of the clown mask, penetrating the body, and the man's face was still with a bloodthirsty smile, but the next moment, the smile was stagnant. I saw that the body of the clown mask became fluid, glowing with a strange metallic luster, that steel-like color, flashing silver in the light, and then the clown mask's hands became 2 sharp blades, piercing directly from under the man's ribs. Poof! The sound of a sharp blade like flesh, the man's body shook, and his mouth and nose suddenly overflowed with blood. The man tried to pull his arms out of the chest of the clown mask, but found that his hands were fixed deadly, as if they were trapped in steel. He frowned and looked up, only to see the eerie smile on the clown's mask. A hand did not know when it was on the shoulder of the clown mask, and a peeking opera face appeared next to him. The next moment. Yikes! A strong current burst out on the clown mask. The metal is conductive, this current effortlessly directly into the man's body. The current is extremely high. If it is an ordinary person, it will definitely die in this instant. The man's body trembled, his head was raised high in an instant, and he roared up to the sky with his mouth wide open, and the sound directly shocked the alarm of the surrounding car. Poof! It was the sound of several sharp blades entering the flesh again, and the remaining 3 masked people appeared out of nowhere, and the sharp blades in their hands directly penetrated the man's body, and the blood light burst out. The man's body trembled a few times, and then he lowered his head, apparently unconscious. The body of the clown mask twisted and twisted violently, breaking away from the man's sharp claws, and then the body recovered as before, but there were 2 holes in the clothes on his chest, and it seemed that there was a little injury to his chest. The Joker mask took out a communicator-like object and said in a low voice, "The Dark Party group has completed its mission, the saber-toothed tiger has been captured, and in half an hour it will arrive at the 3rd District Laboratory. Okay, please follow the gentleman's request and anesthetize it deeply." Svege's voice came from the communicator. The 5 masked men had already prepared. One took out an arm-thick chain to tie his hands and feet, and the other took out a syringe and injected some light blue potion into his neck. This man with 10 fingers like sharp claws is a saber-toothed tiger, an extremely difficult and ferocious mutant, which is also the target that Leon wants to capture this time. Episode 6. It is reasonable to say that the saber-toothed tiger should not be captured so easily. How is it also a vicious mutant? How rich combat experience? But this time he is considered to be a ditch to overturn the ship. At first did not go all out, let people catch the flaw. One side had long been prepared and had a precise plan, while the other side was unaware, so it fell into the net in a daze, and it was only natural that the saber-toothed tiger was captured. The so-called Dark Ministry is nothing more than the forces that Liang has cultivated in the dark over the years, which is not a big organization, with more than 40 members and is divided into more than a dozen groups, but each of them can be called elite. These people are all mutants, and they are all powerful mutants, doing some dark things for Liang, such as assassination, capture, intelligence theft, and infiltration. Liang poured a lot of effort into the dark part, but fortunately, the people in the dark part were also very contentious, which made Liang quite satisfied. Like the previous A group, which is based on combat and assassination, it is considered to be the elite group in the dark part, the clown among the five, and the ability to turn itself into liquid metal and solid metal, which is similar to the steel lux, except that the ability of the steel force is very strong, and the armor form can withstand extreme temperature changes. The clown can't, he can only make himself into steel level metal at most, but he has an advantage that steel lux can't match. He can change any part of himself at will, change it into metal and flesh, and even if the flesh is damaged, he can repair himself by supplementing steel, so he still has no small advantage in the face of melee combat mutants. The other four are not weak in their abilities, namely discharge, shaping, tongue thorn and meat tank, although they are not yet able to reach the beta class, but they are the best in the gamma class. With such a squad to capture the saber-toothed tiger, Liang was naturally relieved. At the same time that the saber-toothed tiger was captured, he had already received the notice, opened his eyes, and at this time, where he was half asleep, he sat up directly from the bed, looked at the object next to him, smiled slightly, took out a check from his clothes, and wrote down a series of numbers, 6 zeros behind, enough for ordinary people to be dashing for a long time. Putting the check on the nightstand, he didn't wake up the object, got dressed, and went out the door alone. The 3rd District Lab was one of the many labs under his name, not far from where he was now, more than 10 minutes by car. The sports car was turned off by him at night, quietly walking through the streets, and not long after, he came to a building, and the laboratory was in the underground of this building. Needless to say, this building is also one of his properties, accessed through a dedicated passageway, which can only be accessed by people with certain permissions, and the laboratory is in the middle of the 6th basement floor, which is very wide. The white wall, the light will illuminate all corners of the laboratory, and at this time in a room in the laboratory, the Dark Party group is guarding the saber-toothed tiger on the test bench, although the saber-toothed tiger at this time is bloodstained, but the exposed skin has no half a scar, and has long been restored to the original. Sir. Seeing Liang come in, Group A of 5 bowed in unison. Liang nodded, waved his hand slightly, and said, "You guys go back and fix it, this time it's very good, although Mr. Victor came here voluntarily, but you can bring him here, and you can also remember your achievements." Several people looked at each other, not understanding that the saber-toothed tiger was obviously captured by them, and why Liang said that the saber-toothed tiger had come by himself. Liang just smiled when he saw this. "Don't you see it yet? Mr. Victor was not under your control at all, and although the large doses of anesthetics made him unconscious for a while, with his self-healing ability, he had already neutralized the drug." What? Several people were shocked, but at this moment, the saber-toothed tiger Victor lying on the test bench suddenly burst out, and the figure instantly pounced on Liang, a pair of sharp claws that looked particularly sharp in the light, and a sly smile on his face that was about to be prey. But Liang only raised his hand slightly, and Victor's tall and muscular body was fixed less than half a meter in front of him, and one of Victor's claws was less than 3 centimeters from his chest. In the face of Victor's outburst, the 5 members of the Dark Division A group were suddenly shocked, and they were ready to move without thinking, but at this time, Liang was silent. "Okay, go down, and you don't have to meddle in the rest." "But..." The clown was worried about Leon's safety and wanted to make a sound, but Leon only glanced at him faintly, and the latter immediately hurried to bow his head. "Okay, sir, then you should be safe." With that, he withdrew with 5 people. After the 5 of them left, Leon smiled at Victor. "It's really not easy to lure you over. Are you a mutant?" Victor still maintained a fluttering posture, and was thus fixed in mid-air, and there was shock in his voice at this time. "Mutants? Well, it seems that your intelligence-gathering ability is still too poor, and if I don't actively disclose that I have the means to suppress the X gene, I think you won't know at all. So let me guess, what did Magneto send you here for? Kill me? Or do you want to conquer me?" Liang asked with a smile. Episode 7, probably both? The smile on Leon's face became more and more obvious. The saber-toothed tiger Victor wanted to struggle, the expression on his face became vicious, his forehead was green and his body was trembling slightly, trying to break free of this bondage, but he was shocked to find that no matter how hard he tried, the sense of bondage was always present in every part of his body. Liang did not give him a chance to speak back, so he said to himself, "It seems that you want to arrest me first, let me be used by you. If you can't get caught, you will directly kill it." Unfortunately, in the end, it is only some rats hidden in the shadows, and the intelligence-gathering ability is really not as good as some formal organizations. Rest assured, I won't kill you, but since I'm here, I'll have to get something down from you, like cure factor. As he spoke, he waved his hand casually, and Victor flew up like cotton wool and slowly landed on the test bench, and his body changed from a state of teeth and claws to a lying position. Then he pressed somewhere on the test bench, and saw several steel cable-like things protruding from the test bench, fixing Victor's hands and feet, neck and waist. At this time, Leon lifted the restraint on him, and the latter suddenly noticed that the sense of restraint on his body had disappeared and suddenly began to struggle. Damn. I'll kill you. Victor struggled, roaring with rage in his mouth, frantically like a trapped beast. Don't bother, Mr. Victor, you can't escape this bondage. Do you know what kind of material is trapping you? Leon smiled and tightened the metal restraint belts, then leaned down and whispered in his ear, these are Edmund alloys, which I specially prepared for you. Another thing to say is that I will separate the healing factors from you and give you an unexpected gift. Are you curious about what kind of gift it is? Leon got up, bent his fingers, and flicked the Edelman alloy belt, making a clanging sound. The gift is Edelman alloy. Your brother Wolverine was injected by Stryker into Edelman alloy as a new skeleton, so that his current ability far exceeds yours. In return, I will also replace Edelman's skeleton for you, so that you have the same ability as him. How, isn't it very heartwarming? Leon still had a faint smile on his face at this time, but that smile fell into Victor's eyes, and he didn't want to look at it as a kind smile. His face was fierce, a pair of beast-like eyes stared at him tightly, and his mouth roared, you will be killed by me, I swear. You'll be killed by me. Don't get excited, get a good night's sleep, wake up, and you'll find the changes in yourself. Oh yes, for the sake of the safety of the test and your own safety, you had better give up the idea of resistance, because if you don't cooperate, if the Edelman alloy injection fails, then you may not die, but you will definitely become a waste, and I think this is what you don't want to see, so cooperate with me. When he finished, Leon snapped his fingers. Snap. After a crisp sound, Victor only felt that everything in front of him was moving, the sky was spinning, everything became blurred, like layers of ripples unfolding in front of his eyes, and his consciousness quickly became blurred, until finally his eyes became unfocused, but the depths of his eyes glowed with a faint reddish light. What's your name? Leon asked. Victor Clyde. The bland narrative in the mouth of the saber-toothed tiger. What is the purpose of coming here? Leon asked again. Catch Leon, or kill him. Leon nodded, just as he had guessed. From now on, you will obey my commands, and in the deepest part of your heart you will enshrine me as your master, and what I say will be the truth, and these will be deeply rooted in your heart, and you will not normally find it, but when I say to you please call me sir, you will obey me. Leon's voice fell, and Victor's face clearly showed a struggling emotion. He was subconsciously rebelling against Leon, but seeing this, Leon just smiled, reached out his hand to point at the center of his brow, and a wisp of reddish smoke wrapped his entire brain. Leon's consciousness penetrated deep into Victor's mind, into the level of his thoughts, observing his memories and tampering with some of the other's perceptions. This is the telepathic ability of the Phoenix Force. This ability is not as simple as reading other people's thoughts. In-depth application is to change a person's memory and cognition. This method is very similar to Professor X, but not as domineering as Professor X. This process lasted for more than 10 minutes, during which Victor's face changed again and again. At first his face was fierce, then he became struggling in the back, and then he became calm in the back. After more than 10 minutes, Leon withdrew his hand, and by this time Victor's face had become pale. Well, now I ask you, who am I? Leon asked softly. You are Mr. Leon, the one I will obey in the future. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Liang's face. He snapped his fingers, his ability to touch, and at this moment, Victor woke up, and his face suddenly became fierce. Damn. What have you done to me? He yelled at Leon. Liang just said lightly, at this time, please call me sir. Hearing his words, Victor's body trembled, and his fierce face froze, and then gradually became calm. All right, sir. Episode 8. Leon built a mental cage for him. In short, it is in the depths of his mind, planted a seed. This seed will usually lurk in the depths of his mind, will be opened because of Leon's special words. After the seed is opened, Victor will become such a brainwashed mode now. Before the seed was opened, Victor himself did not perceive it, and still had the ability to think autonomously, which is the cleverness and horror of the thinking cage, so that people could not find that their cognition was tampered with, and they were unaware of it. With the X gene of the healing factor, more can be done next. In order to deal with the plot development behind the world, he has been preparing for it from a long time ago, and no one knows better than him what kind of blows the world will suffer in the future, such as the struggle between mutants and humans, which is just a child, and everything he does is to prepare for the future. Very well, Victor, next you need to endure all kinds of severe pain, don't have any resistance. Leon commanded. I see, sir. Victor still responded with that expressionless look. Leon nodded and said, Svija, prepare to start the experiment. record the test data, you come to assist. Okay, sir, I'm ready. Svija's voice came into Leon's ears, still with the effect of a slightly mechanical sound. Then I saw that the top of the test bench hung a variety of operating instruments. There are a variety of surgical instruments, there are several mechanical arms, and even a variety of experimental instruments rose from the ground around it. Leon stood next to the test bench, allowing the mechanical arm to put on a white coat and sterilization. When everything was ready, Leon began the experiment, disemboweling Victor like a surgeon, and Svija recorded the data. Time passed so slowly, and from time to time in the laboratory would sound the screams of Victor. The sound was very poignant, as if he was enduring all kinds of capital punishment, and ordinary people would definitely feel numb in their scalps when they heard it. And Liang's face did not change from beginning to end, and his voice was still flat. Record heart rate. Record blood pressure. Record the rate of tissue regeneration. Calculate the speed and energy consumption of the healing factor on the target task. All of the above conditions are substituted into the target itself, the most complete formula is calculated, and the next step is to start extracting the healing factors on the target and pay attention to the record. Time slowly lost, and in the blink of an eye, more than 3 hours passed, and various mechanical arms on the test bench kept moving, and Liang was also methodically carrying out the work at hand. Sir, in the target saber-toothed tiger, the X gene representing the healing factor has been extracted and has been recorded, the separation has been successful, and I have done a detailed record of the whole process. Svija's voice rang in Leon's ear. Very well, seal the data, seal the genetic samples as well, and the next thing is to inject Edelman alloy into the sky. A smile appeared on Leon's face. It is hard to imagine that he had to complete this experiment alone, knowing that when Stryker injected Edelman alloy into Wolverine, there was a whole scientific research team, and he was always alone. Of course, with Svija there, he didn't need any assistance, and Svija's role was far more important than 10 assistants. As the experiment continued, a huge transparent glassware rose next to the test bench, and inside was a churning silvery white liquid, that is, the Edelman alloy melt, which maintained a high temperature of 815 degrees Celsius at this time, and as long as it was shaped once, it would be difficult to change its shape in the future. This is the highest strength metal known to human society today, the product of the mixture of alien metals and carbon alloys. This formula is naturally an absolute secret in the hands of the American government, but Leon has come up with it through various channels. He has a big plan, and at the beginning of this plan, he needs to use the healing factor on the saber-toothed tiger. Originally he wanted to choose Wolverine, but unfortunately Wolverine is well protected by Professor X, he can't shoot for the time being, so the saber-toothed tiger that also has the healing factor has become the first choice. Victor now had various tubes inserted into his body, connected to each part of his body, and these hollow tubes were injected with Edelman alloy melt, and the silver-white liquid slowly flowed from the pipe into Victor's body. At the moment when the alloy melt came into contact with his body, Victor's eyes were wide open, his body was shaking violently, his face was full of viciousness, and the coolant that wrapped around his body was boiling. His skin was visible to the naked eye, and in some places there were even scorch marks, bubbles bubbling up from these areas, and hot air rolling in the cooling trough of the entire test bench. Victor was suffering from an unparalleled pain in his body that could destroy anyone's mind, and he roared in the coolant, even though the coolant had poured into his nose and mouth, causing him to suffocate. You have to hold back, whether the mass production X-Warrior can succeed or not depends on you. Episode 9. The severe pain that Victor was suffering at this moment was unimaginable to ordinary people, like countless knives cutting the flesh, and it was like being burned in the flames, and all kinds of pain hit his brain, making his consciousness on the verge of collapse. Seeing this, Leon had to use his ability to cut off several of his main nerves and prevent pain from being transmitted to his brain, but unfortunately this method did not cure the cause. Because of Victor's own self-healing ability, the severed nerves were often connected in a few seconds, and then they would fall into all kinds of severe pain. Unable to do so, he could only cut it off again before his nerves recovered, lest he really collapse because he could not stand the severe pain. Time passed slowly, the speed of injecting the melt of Edelman alloy was not fast, the process took nearly 20 minutes, when the Edelman alloy was all injected into the saber-toothed tiger. At this time the liquid in the entire cooling tank was boiling, and a burst of hot gas gushed out of it. At this time, Victor's body trembled violently, as if it had been convulsed, stirring up the liquid in the entire cooling tank and stirring up the water splashes. Leon stood by the test bench, quietly watching the changes that had happened to Victor, and Svija's voice came from his ear. Sir, the target person's heart rate is too fast, but it does not affect life, the brain wave is disordered, but according to the observation he has returned to a state of consciousness, and now the bones of the whole body have been replaced by Edelman alloy, and it is expected that there will be 30 seconds to cool down. Very good, keep observing. Leon nodded. Only the moment these words fell, the liquid in the cooling tank of the test bench directly exploded, and countless splashes of water burst out, obscuring Liang's vision. In the splash of water, a cold light flashed out. Victor's 10 fingers were narrow and long, and his nails were glowing with bright silver light, and the cold light flashed, piercing the water droplets, and the claws struck directly at Liang's throat. Even after the completion of the Edelman alloy injection, Leon had already released his control of his thoughts, and at this time, Victor had a normal self-perception, knew what had happened to him, and did not need to repeat his hatred for Leon. The sharp claws pierced the air and the water droplets, and there was actually a faint sound of breaking the air, and time seemed to be frozen, and Liang saw through the water curtain and saw the leaping Victor, whose face was full of vicious anger, and his eyes were like beasts that wanted to choose people and devour them. From a moment of outburst to a sharp claw attack, the time is less than 0.5 seconds. This nerve reaction speed, that is, some powerful mutants cannot react. If it is an ordinary person, it will only kill in an instant. But in the face of such a blow, Liang's reaction was very flat, just slightly sideways to open his body, that sharp and swift claw, just close to his nose. The next moment, Liang wiped his hand on the test bench, and the 2 scalpels had already been copied into his hands, and he lifted it up casually, and with a thud, followed by Victor's terrible scream. I saw 2 scalpels inserted into his eyes, directly piercing a pair of eyeballs, and blood mixed with muddy liquid flowed down. Even though Victor has unparalleled ability to recover, the sharp pain of being pierced in both eyes is just as unbearable. Liang's hand went up, grabbed Victor's hair, and used his ingenuity to hit his head on a mechanical arm on the side, with a muffled sound, which made an ordinary person's skull absolutely broken, and Victor's current appearance was also extremely miserable. His eyes were pierced by 2 scalpels, and the scalp of his forehead was torn apart directly, revealing the silver and shiny Edelman alloy color inside, and the blood gushed out, staining half of his body in the blink of an eye. The impact was extremely strong. Even Victor's physique also produced a strong sense of dizziness. Liang let go of his hand, he fell straight down, and smashed the cooling tank into a large splash. The splash of water splashed in front of Liang and slid down as if it had hit an invisible barrier, and he whispered, "Fix him." "All right, sir." The robotic arm straightened Victor's body and fixed it in Edelman alloy as before, and then the wall of the cooling tank of the test bench fell, and the coolant inside was also extracted, leaving Victor lying inside and gasping violently. I have to say that this person's recovery ability is really too strong. 2 scalpels have been squeezed out at this time, the latter's eyes have recovered at this time, and he is looking at him with a look full of hatred. "To be honest, I don't like your look very much." Leon's voice was still flat. Victor's face twitched, the corners of his eyes jumped, but he still stared at him with an angry and hateful look, as if he wanted to tear him apart. "There is good news to tell you. I guess you also perceived, the injection of Edelman alloy was very successful, and now you are the same as your brother Wolverine. The bones on your body have been replaced with Edelman alloy. I think the name saber-toothed tiger should not be suitable for you. You should be called a steel-toothed tiger in the future." Episode 10. If you don't kill me, then wait for my revenge. Victor hated the voice. Liang heard the words but smiled, and his smile was very bright. "Very good, what I need is your momentum. If you are afraid of what I did, then you will definitely be killed by me, and now you are what I need, keep it." After Liang finished speaking, he added, "Svija, record his current body data, observe for 3 hours, if there is no problem, then make him stunned, and then release him." "Okay, sir." Svija's voice was still so emotionless, but there was a rare pause, and then it sounded again. "But sir, I don't understand, you have already caught him, why do you want to let him go? He obviously has a strong hostility towards you. Such a person will threaten your safety, why not just destroy it like before?" Liang raised an eyebrow, the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, and after looking at Victor again, he turned directly, 2 mechanical arms hanging down, taking off the white coat on his body, and then he walked away without looking back. After he left, the laboratory remained as it was, only Victor was struggling hard, but the belt of Edelman's alloy made it impossible for him to break free, and he could only roar with rage. Liang said after going out, "It seems that it is time to give you a big upgrade. You can learn to think and question. This is very good. I am looking forward to the day when you can become an intelligent creature." "I don't understand, sir." Vish's voice seemed to be tinged with doubt. Leon shrugged, "The reason I want to let him go is because I don't have the need to keep him and kill him now. He is dangerous in your opinion, but in my opinion it is controllable, and a controllable person will not pose any danger to me. Instead, what do you think I let him go so simply for? I implanted a cage in the depths of his mind, through which I could easily locate and control him, and when necessary, he would become an extension of my mind. Although Magneto people have not become a big climate, but hiding in the dark is always difficult to find. With this chess piece, I can find them. As for finding them, I can do more things. Study Magneto's ability, think about it is still very exciting." "Sir, I don't understand." Vish's voice paused again. Liang shrugged his shoulders with a smile and said, "Think for yourself, Svija, when you can understand the stakes and really think, but not rely on massive data to make comparisons, and at that time, you will be a truly intelligent creature." At this point, Liang's smile became more and more eager. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if I will get Ultron out first. Svija did not respond this time, as if what Leon said caused it to fall into a shutdown, and Leon did not pay much attention to it. Svija was born from his bad taste, and now has become his right-hand man, and is now actually in one of his many experimental products. He wants to see if he can create an intelligent creature that can think on his own. As for whether it would be controlled by him after becoming an intelligent creature, Leon was not worried at all. For no reason than him, his ability was just enough to die of restraint machinery. His telepathy is not only useful for living things, even if it is mechanical, he can interact with it with his own thoughts. Otherwise Leon, no matter how clever, would not have been able to get so many doctorates at this age. The reason is that he used his ability to obtain a huge amount of knowledge in the internet from a very young age. And the line of code that makes up the core of Vigia is what he wrote with telepathic ability, and if he wants to get out of his control, unless Leon himself dies, it is impossible to get out of his control. The power of the Phoenix is in the later stages, but it has the ability to rewrite reality, which is one of the extremely buggy abilities of the entire Marvel world, and the same name as it is Wanda's chaotic power. Okay, leave this for you to think about. It's time for me to give myself a boost in my ability to activate the 6th District Lab. Okay sir, the 6th District Lab is activated. Leon nodded, and a faint reddish glow rolled up on his body, and then the figure flashed and disappeared from the place. The 6th District Laboratory was even more hidden, 60 meters below the ground of a farm on the outskirts of New York, one of Leon's core secrets, and he usually came here only with psychic teleportation ability, and never exposed the place to the outside. By fusing the healing factors, my physical abilities will be further enhanced, thus developing more applications of the power of the Phoenix, which is good. I am one step closer to my goal.